Hello and welcome to The Big Picture. The demise of one of the most popular public figures of India, former President APJ Abdul Kalam, last night has let loose a torrent of emotions and memories about the man and his mission in life. His quiet rise to the topmost position any Indian can hold, from humble beginnings from the southern tip of India, Rameshwaram, is nothing short of a fairy tale, or more appropriately, a Panchatantra tale. His contributions at the end of the day will be discussed and written for many more months and years to come. As an aeronautical engineer who specialized later in missile technology, as DRDO chief, as scientific advisor to the Prime Minister, as the first technocrat to be the recipient of the Bharat Ratna, as someone who played a key role in Pokhran II nuclear test, and later emerging as a dark horse for the presidency and his time in the Rashtrapati Bhavan itself, has left many memories. Post-presidency, he was as active, if not more, as the president, traveling the world, spreading his thoughts and ideas and firing the imagination of the youth especially. So what is his real legacy? What will he be remembered as, though he himself used to say he would like to be remembered as a teacher? We will discuss all this today, as his mortal remains lie in state here in the capital, waiting to be taken to his hometown Rameshwaram, where the burial will take place tomorrow. To discuss this, I have with me Wing Commander Ajay Lele, Research Fellow at the Institute for Defence Studies and Analysis, Mohan Guruswamy, Economist and Defence Analyst, Siddharth Varadarajan, Founding Editor of the Wire.in, and on the phone line is a former colleague and associate of late President Kalam, G. Madhavan Nair, former Chairman of the ISRO. Welcome to all of you. Mr. Madhavan Nair, when President Kalam spent so much of time in Trivandrum, in those days, I think you were also, his colleague, you worked with him there. What are the memories he has left of those days with you?
Oh, actually, it was a fantastic experience working together with Dr. Kalam in the Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station and later in the Indian Space Research Organization. In fact, we have worked together for the realization of the SLV-3, India's first satellite launch vehicle.
Right.
That was a time in which even we did not know the full meaning of rocket technology, and it was all vague ideas. We have toiled together on the beaches of the Tumba, forgetting our personal conveniences. Here, Dr. Kalam at the time, we all rated him as a workaholic. His worship was only work and achieving the final goal of realizing the largest rocket at the time in India. He spent days and nights together with the design team and motivated the young engineers to really develop new technologies and new systems which were required for that great venture. He never bothered about his personal conveniences. He always was available for any discussion, and he was at the workplace. In fact, he considered the laboratories as the temples as far as he is concerned.
Okay, well, laboratory as a temple. Ajay Lele, is that you have interacted with him, but you know his work quite a bit. You think that what is the kind of legacy he has left as a technocrat?
I think he was a person with different perceptions, even as a technocrat. He was not a routine technocrat who will sit inside the laboratory and start doing his experimentation. He was a person on the street. He was interested into doing many things. And one interesting episode which I remember, he had come to our organization to inaugurate a conference. And usually after inauguration of the conference, people say some few good words and pass off. But he was a person who tasked us. He said that I have inaugurated a conference on space security, so I would like you people to do following jobs. He was a person who had varied interests. He was visiting our library. First thing is that he was very keen to know why the digitization is taking time. He was ready to help us also. At that time,
digitization of what?
Digitization of the entire library, the entire books. We got a collection of almost 1 lakh books. Exactly. So he was a person who was giving various new ideas and he was willing to work for it. It's not that he only gave us the idea. he gives the sources also, that if you want to do a digitalization of a, say, library, these are the people you can contact them in Rashtrapati Bhavan, so on and so forth. So I found him as an individual who
And
was...
this was as a president.
This was as a president. So
and as a president, he would come to the library also.
he had visited a library. So that's the way he was approaching the things. So he was not approaching the things in a very scientific way, I can say. He was approaching the things in a more humane way. He was interacting with the people. He was even interacting with the people who are doing all small jobs also, and asking them what are their problems and how they can bring improvement into the system. So I think he had a vision that he wanted to improve each and every system which is available, and using technology for that purpose.
And he used to learn it himself.
He used to learn it himself. That was the most interesting aspect of it. When we were conducting a conference, he had called a few of us to his office before the conduct of the conference. He wanted to know everything about the conference, what are the guidelines which we have followed, what is the concept for the conference, which are the papers which will be presented over there, what are the basic themes, what are the ideas could be generated, and what could be the end product out of the conference. So he was not only looking at a conference as a talk shop, but he was looking at a conference more from a productive point of view.
Okay. Mohan, if we shift a little bit, he was seen as a apolitical person who occupied the office of the presidency. You have had interactions with him. You have seen him from close quarters. Was he really apolitical?
He was, in the sense that he was entirely focused on the matter at hand and on finding solutions to it. And he had a broader perspective of what the nation is all about, and that politics shouldn't get into the way of nation building. In 2003, I had done a study called the Economic Strangulation of Bihar, which is a very...
Of Bihar?
Of Bihar, which is a very widely circulated paper and, published in the APJ and other places. And the former Prime Minister Chandrasekhar sent a copy of that to the President. And 3 days later...
Just 3 days later?
3 days later, I got a call from Rashtrapati Bhavan saying that the President is expecting you tomorrow at this time. And I went to the Rashtrapati Bhavan with my laptop and the presentation on it. And Chandrasekhar ji was already there. And he sat down and we made small chit-chat for a few minutes. And he said, okay, now let's talk about Bihar. And he went through the presentation very quietly. I put all the figures before him. And he absorbed it. He asked me to come back to some slides, go back to some slides. He was double-checking the figures. And then he said, at the end of it, he said, very softly, he said, Mohan, how can India go forward leaving Bihar behind if 11% of the population is there? The question for our leadership. What do you suggest? So I said, sir, I'm at loss of words here. You're a former Prime Minister and you're the President of India. We look on you people to find the solutions. He said, no, younger people like you must find solutions and recommend it to us. And so he said, we'll have another meeting to discuss any proposals you might have. And I went back and I thought about it, and I said, it won't come back. And then a couple of months later, I got a call. What have you done? Come. And, I went, and then, we discussed a few things on, how government can be decentralized. And that was something, he was uncomfortable with, because, it involved politics, talking about decentralization of power, removal of, power from the center, giving it to not only the states, but below the states. But he said, how do we get people to talk about these things? So I said, sir, what happens? Parliament doesn't function. These issues don't get discussed. He said, we must find a solution to this. And once I ran into him in a public gathering, he said, have you found any solutions? So I said, sir, I'm still working on it. But, he was that kind of man. There was a childlike focus on the problem at hand in him. And that was quite remarkable. I really think, there's much is being made about him as a defense technologist, a defense technocrat, even a defense scientist, which he certainly wasn't.
Yes.
But I think...
he's, there is a mistaken notion that he was a scientist, which he was not.
Yeah, but I think he really came to age as president. He imbibed that office with a certain dignity, with a certain informality. He opened the Rashtrapati Bhavan Gardens. He did lots of things. And I think he captured the imagination of young people by talking to them directly. And I think this is effective use of the Rashtrapati Bhavan. You know, Rashtrapati President doesn't really have much powers. He's bound by the advice of the government. So how you use it to preach and
in
convert...
fact, he broke away from the protocol of the Rashtrapati, of a Rashtrapati.
And he was informal, and you know, I think, and post-retirement also, he continues on that line.
Absolutely,
it was not as if it was an affectation.
Siddharth, you know, and again, I would like to come back to this. He's supposed to be apolitical, non-political line, but he did do certain things as president, which, you know, though not very in a typical politician manner, but he sent strong signals there, right? Siddharth?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. I'm sorry.
Siddharth, I was saying that, you know, much is made about him being a very apolitical man and things like that. But as president, as Mohan was pointing out, he really took to that job, you know, very quickly, despite him not being a politician. But he did send some strong political signals as the president, right?
Well, I think his very persona, you know, the line is not very clear, so your question was, a few words are getting missed. But if I understand what you're asking, you know, I think the very persona of Dr. Kalam was such that, you know, he stood in marked contrast to the kind of public personalities and the kind of political figures that the Indian public was used to seeing. And by that very example, I think he stood head and shoulders above governments that he advised, or governments... line cut gaya.
I think there is a problem there with this audio there. We'll get back to him. Mr. Madhavan Nair, coming back to you, you know, it is said that he was the missile man of India. How did he become the missile man of India? You know, what were the circumstances in which he took up these missile programs? And also it is said that, you know, though he was successful as far as Agni and Prithvi were concerned, you know, it took a much longer time than it should have. There were a lot of cost and overruns, time overruns and things like that. Why did all this happen, and how did he handle all of them?
Well, one thing we must remember, it was Kalam who ushered in the new era of rocket technology in India.
Right.
SLV-3, we made the largest rocket at the time with the 10 tons of propellant for one of the stages and about 17 tons at the liftoff and so on. This technology, everyone shouted us, we are making IRBM class of launchers and so on. But at the time, the government had a policy that ISRO should not be looking at any of the defense application, and it is only for peaceful purposes. The net result is that defense activities will have to start from scratch. In fact, that is where the challenge was, and Madam Gandhi has pulled him out of ISRO and put him in charge of the missile program. He gave a grand vision of developing the missiles for the country, and we are proud that we have got a range of missiles starting from Prithvi to Agni 5, reaching all the way up to something like 5,000 kilometers. This is a great achievement. His vision, his passion for innovation, and his ability to put together the complex technology as well as the scientists, that is what made things happen. And he has been a visionary leader in the scientific arena, and his contribution either in the space, the missile program, and for the weapon development cannot be forgotten. It will be written in the golden letters in history of India.
But as far as, you know, he faced problems in you know, pursuing these programs. There were a lot of delays and there were costs. Now, how did he deal with them? What did he feel about them? And, you know, would he take the blame himself, or, you know, how did he react to these kind of situations?
No, in fact, this technology denials and what you call discourage from the various developed countries was very much with us. In fact, that has been the driving force as far as he is concerned. He made world-class laboratories here, made our scientists work hard to achieve and bring in the latest technology with respect to materials, propellant, control system, instrumentation, and so on. And the self-reliance in this field has been achieved, which others would have taken 3 or 4 times more time and money in such program. But we have achieved in a shoestring budget, and he is mainly responsible for it. But our the accounting system or the political system and all, they were not sensitive to the challenges in this area. And some people, without knowing the full history behind such a tremendous achievement, can say that there were delays, there were problems, and so on. But we must remember, on our own, we made the largest rocket, which is required for.
Okay, I think we got disconnected. Mohan, would you like to react to that? I'll come to Ajay.
This is not a good time to talk, do an honest appraisal of a person who just passed away. But the reality is that DRDO has not really delivered.
No, is it because of the technology denial regime that we faced? What were the
Partly,
reasons?
but
I'm sure
other countries have also been subject to technology denial regimes, and they have achieved more. Now, for instance, there was no technology denial on the LCA. The Americans were on board right from beginning. But yet, we still have not been able to operationalize it. There was no great technology in the main battle tank. It's still, the Indian Army is still reluctant to induct it. So we've had lots of issues with DRDO. Matter of fact, in 1998, I had proposed to the finance minister then that we should ask DRDO for a white paper on what they've done. And, he said terrified. He said, don't suggest it. This is a Bharat Ratna sitting there. So, the thing is that his personality was so big that, few could ask him questions. But I think at some stage, then appraisal has to be made. Maybe it was not him. He was an outstanding man manager, assembled very good teams, he attracted good people. The present crop of leaders of the various labs are his
creation.
In a way. So, all that success must be given to him. But at the end of it, it also costs the country huge. For instance, the INS Virat, the aircraft carrier, which was the only aircraft carrier we had for a long time, was floating around without a proper anti-aircraft and anti-missile system. Because DRDO said, no, we'll make it. And didn't really make it. And finally, when they came up with something, it was impractical. If you put that missile system on the Virat, then no planes could land or take off. So, there were such issues also.
There were issues there.
But he was willing to dare. And I will do it. And this confidence is also important.
Absolutely.
And I think to that we must give him credit.
Ajay, Lele, how would you look at this? All these criticisms of him as far as DRDO was concerned.
No, you see, DRDO has been a punching bag for quite some time. DRDO has done many good things also, which are usually not seen in the limelight because they have not delivered in the big ticket items like MBT Arjun or something. Tejas is again an example. But one has to look the entire issue in a slightly different perspective. I would like to draw your attention to a timeline. We had launched our first satellite in 1980, SLV-3, where Mr. Kalam was heading that project. He left ISRO and joined DRDO. Indira Gandhi, the then defense minister, and Kalam, and you had Mr. Arunachalam,
yes,
who was heading DRDO at that
then
point of time.
Defense minister was Venkatraman.
Exactly, who eventually became a president. So all these people came together and we started India's integrated missile development program. This program ran from 1982 to 2008. It had come out with 4 to 5 sort of missiles. Agni and Prithvi are the basic missiles. We had certain amount of failures with anti-tank missile like Nag and other things. But one has to understand that MTCR regime came into being somewhere around 86, 87. So the technology denial was a reality. Now, under those circumstances, it's very easy to come and say that you have not done ABC. But if you just don't have any sort of access to the technology and to develop a rocket technology on your own, it definitely takes time. If I have to give a slightly tangential example, the basic aircraft F-22 Raptor was a Second World War, rather Cold War era design. So it was on a drawing board almost for 25 to 26 years. So the gestation period for military technologies globally is huge. Maybe we have taken 10 to 20% more amount of a time. But definitely one can't say that others have developed in 2 years and you have taken 22 years. That's definitely not the case.
Okay, yes, Mohan, quickly.
I have a small point on this. Forget about big ticket items. Take the basic infantry combat rifle. We worked on it, and we produce it, and the army doesn't want it because they're not happy with the output. Because the rifle's got all kinds of problems, and now they're looking for a new rifle. Now, somebody has to take responsibility for that. That some of our institutions don't work. You have to reform the ordnance system. You've got to do all that. And I think the defense DRDO leadership, therefore, has to take some responsibility for it.
Okay. Siddharth, can you hear me? Siddharth?
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Siddharth, I want...
I can hear you.
Yeah, I'm trying to, I want you to look at his presidency, what he did as the President of India. As the President of India, he came into the office as a complete outsider, completely, everybody was taken by surprise. The way his candidacy emerged itself was very interesting, isn't it? And why do you think it emerged? He became a candidate.
Absolutely. I mean, I think...
Yeah, please continue.
No, I think Prime Minister Atal Bihari Vajpayee in 2002. Yeah, no, I think Atal Bihari Vajpayee was very keen to have a consensual candidate as president to, in a way, turn his back on some of the more divisive issues that had characterized the first NDA regime. And I think Kalam's name, the way it emerged with inputs from the Samajwadi Party leader Mulayam Singh Yadav, and of course the fact that he had played a stellar role in the missile and nuclear weapons program, made him an ideal choice. So the fact that he was not a politician, the fact that he was not known to have any strong political or ideological leanings, I think made him completely acceptable across the spectrum. And I think his record in office in Rashtrapati Bhavan, I think has confirmed the wisdom of that choice, because he not only set a new benchmark for how a public figure of that stature should present himself and should conduct himself with people at large. But I think some of the judgments he took, if you recall his decision around about 2006 during the UPA 1 regime to refuse or to send back for consideration the Office of Profit Bill.
That's right.
Because he felt that this was really quite unconstitutional to try to craft individual exemptions for well-placed people rather than coming up with a balanced law.
Right.
Or indeed, as we now know, because he wrote about it in his book, his decision, his desire to resign when the Supreme Court overturned the imposition of President's rule
in Bihar
in 2005.
Right.
This was something that President Kalam had signed while he was in Moscow, kind of under duress from the Prime Minister, from the Union Cabinet. And it was a decision he was conflicted about. And when the Supreme Court said that the imposition was wrong, we know that Kalam wanted to resign. And these are very unusual gestures for somebody occupying that office. And he set a very, very high benchmark. And I think for that reason, he is arguably the most loved occupant of Rashtrapati Bhavan that India has seen. And I'm saying this with the full sense of responsibility, going back all the way to the creation of the Republic. He truly made the presidency his own, and he set a standard which will be very difficult for others to follow.
Yeah, and Mohan, another thing which he went to Gujarat in 2002. After the 2002 had happened, right. He went there. The government was not very happy about him going there. The Prime Minister, in fact, was very reluctant. The Prime Minister, then Prime Minister Mr. Vajpayee, asked him, "Do you have to go there?" He said, "Yes, I'll go."
Yes. I know he really.
It showed some political. Was it his political sense, or was it the sense of humanity which took him there?
The instinct to do the right thing, and he really grew in that office as president. He imbibed that office with lots of human values. Openness, courage, and he was not afraid to quietly speak out on various things. That is something which if you have to judge him by his presidency alone, then it's a great presidency. I don't think we've had a president quite as distinguished as that, probably after Dr. Rajendra Prasad also had problems with Jawaharlal Nehru, and Dr. Radhakrishnan also had certain other issues. But Kalam, his personal life, his public life, there was no difference. It was the same President Kalam you saw at home and the same President Kalam. I remember a small anecdote when I once the third time I think I saw him, I told him that, he said, have you come to Rashtrapati Bhavan before? So I said, yes, when President Narayanan was here. So he said, what did you talk? So I said, no, I have nothing to talk because, I only commented, sir, that you live in a big house. And President Narayanan said, no, I actually live in a small apartment at the back. So Kalam said, he lived in an apartment, I live in one room. That was quite unique about it, the modesty and self-effacement.
Yes. Siddharth, another important political, if you want to call it a political signal, like there were 21 mercy petitions before him of convicts who had been sentenced to death. He didn't take any decision on 20 of them, one he took. You think that he was sending a political signal there, or is it, again, it was a sense of humanity?
Well, we know from what he has said afterwards in his book and in his recent submission to the Law Commission that Dr. Kalam did not believe in the death penalty.
Right.
And he allowed it to be implemented only in the case of Dhananjay. I personally would have preferred, I think, a more consistent expression of opposition to the death penalty would have been if he had accepted the mercy pleas of 20 rather than leaving them without having taken a decision, because that always opens the possibility for your successor to then deny them clemency. Having said that, I think that it's not easy for a man in that position to go against the grain of public opinion in this country, or indeed the weight of what politicians and what governments want. And the fact that he did not want to go down in history as a hanging president, I think is something which, again, the country will remember him for. I think he was ahead of his time. I think he took an enlightened view on the outdated nature of the death penalty, how in any civilized democracy you shouldn't have this kind of penalty. And I think for that reason he deserves credit for making his stand quite clear one way or the other.
Okay, Mr. Madhavan Nair, very quickly, sir, what do you think is his greatest legacy which he has left?
He has given the Vision 2020 and the message to the youth to take the challenge of implementing Vision 2020. That is the legacy he has left behind. And he was a scientist with a human touch.
Okay.
And he has...
Okay, then. Ajay, Lele?
I think he made science popular. He had come out with various sorts of innovative ideas. He started a train which is full of scientific experiments, and the train used to go from, even that experiment continues even today. So I think somewhere amongst the kids, whenever he was speaking, he was not speaking of anything else other than science. I think he has attracted the attention of the kids towards the science. He may be known as a missile man or a rocket man, but I think at the end of the day, he popularized science more for the purposes of peace.
Mohan?
I think his greatest legacy was that, he encouraged young people to dream and, and to work towards realizing that dream. And that, I think, is an achievement which no leader has done here.
And it will be that is a very enduring legacy, obviously, and it is being seen today in the last 24 hours, less than 24 hours, that he has passed away. The kind of reactions which is coming from all sections of people, especially the youth, it clearly shows the kind of legacy he has left behind. So we will. It has been a sad day, but the man has left a lot of memories and a lot of thoughts which he has, which all of us will need to think about, and hopefully we will see his ideas getting fulfilled in the coming days and weeks and years. Thanks to all my guests. Please keep watching. We'll come back with another issue in the big picture, same time tomorrow.